Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, August 26th, 2016. Ready for another show? I'm not. Maybe you would like to take over. Maybe Scott would like to take over. Happy birthday, Scott. Scott Anderson has got his birthday going on today. It's all week, I guess. It's birthday celebrations. Well, okay, Thursday and Friday. That's a lot of the week. When you're at the end of it, it seems like an awful lot. How's it going? When's your birthday? Why don't you all fess up and you can tell us how old you are? Maybe you are old enough to remember, as I do, that where was this? I had this, I saw this, so much going on this morning. It's really crazy, and I have already had occasion to use the "I'm so old I remember" line, and I really haven't been awake and online for all that long today. I'm very tired. I'm so worn out from my fabulous birthday. It went well. Thank you, everybody, for wishing me well. Where was this thing? It was about Roger Ailes and his disgustingness. Yes, Jack Schaefer. Always a good guy to count on for a good turn of phrase. And I saw Glenn Thrush quoting Jack Schaefer on Ailes's Fox, which he described as a catacomb of sexual harassment chambers built to satisfy the old goat. And I had forced to remark, I'm so old I remember when that was grounds for invasion and regime change. Remember that? Who knew they had rape rooms at Fox? I didn't. Well, yeah, I actually for the last month or so, I guess I have. And that's not even the most outrageous news of the day. I don't even know where to start. I guess I don't know. There's a million directions we can go on. Well, let's start this way. Bill in Portland, Maine, captive of the maniac governor, and no pun intended, maniac governor, Paul LePage, tweets thus: Daily Coast Radio is live now. That's true. Kagro X, which is me, David Waldman, has the latest Trump flip-flop. Let me get this right. Flip-flop. There you go. That's true. We'll have a lot of that. Including his change in position on voter fraud, which is also a new one. You're probably up to date on immigration, but in case you've been asleep to this point or are listening via podcast and are still asleep now, you get the idea. We will update you on the latest flip-flop inside the campaign on the subject of voter fraud. Wow. I guess we have the... Well, I'll tell you the story, but the LePage story centers around a voicemail, and I think Bill is saying that is available for us to listen to, so that might be a fun part of the story. LePage is nuts, as you know, and by the way, secret message, everybody who's not a Maine legislator, tune out, you're not listening. Ladies and gentlemen, impeach Paul LePage, or just, you know what, don't come back to work today. It's enough. Thank you for your interest in being legislators, but you're just not doing it. I will say this. I mean, he's nuts and everything. And impeachment is a difficult thing. Although, usually the pushback on impeachment is, well, that's a very serious thing. Well, so what? It's a serious thing. So's occupying the governor's office. He's not taking that seriously. What are you worried about? I am a little tired of reading article after article of flabbergasted, outraged, at wit's end Maine legislators. I just don't know what are we going to do with this guy? He just won't stop. One after the other, after the other, after the other. They're throwing their hands in the air. I don't know what to do. I mean, Susan Collins must be truly, deeply concerned at this point. Surely there's something you can do. Stand up for yourselves. You were elected to office for something. He's not letting you do that. And he's just harassing you. And this is what tar and feathers were made for. And I know you guys don't want to do that anymore because, okay, sure, technically, a lot of our original colonial era and founding era politics were based on acts of horrific violence. But hey, something, peaceful revolution, yada, yada. You know how we like to tell that story here. There's clearly something patriotic and all-American about tar and feather. Some people like running people out of town on a rail. That's also very interesting. Maybe even less invasive, personally, than tar and feathers. But the guy is begging to be thrown out of office, and you've got the keys. That's all I'm saying. I don't understand the situation. I'm not there. I'm not on the ground. Bill is. He agrees. He endorses it 100%. Greg is in New England. That counts, too. He says, out with Paul LePage. I'm positive of it. Hang up now if that's not true. Greg, are you there?
I'm in New England.
Okay. There you go.
Go ahead, prove it. Says who?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, he's onto the prove it line, too. Right.
Prove I'm a racist, he said. LePage challenges Westbrook lawmaker in obscenity-laced voicemail. The governor later says he wishes he and Representative Drew Gattin could have a duel, and I would point my gun right between his eyes.
Wow, that is so tough
LePage
sounding. That's great.
So LePage.
Yeah, really. I wish I had a gun and I would point it at him, and he'd be so. And then if I had a sandwich, it would be great. I don't know. Okay. Whatever. I like the fantasy. I would have a gun and I would point it between his eyes, and I told him. He's 12 years old.
I wonder if we don't have this speak, but I wonder if Trump left I mean, it would be irresponsible not to speculate, but I wonder if Trump left a expletive-laced, obscenity-laced voicemail at the Clinton campaign.
Maybe.
Challenging them to a duel for calling him a racist. Because you know what? So. That's what Hillary did.
Yes, that's true. And many people thought a fantastic...
Who says? He says who?
I don't know.
The polls, all of them.
Oh. Well, they're skewed. I wish I could put a gun between the polls' eyes with a couple of apostrophes in there. Right. And, yeah.
So the story is, of course, there was an extraordinary speech yesterday, truly extraordinary speech by Clinton. And you may not have seen it. You're not into seeing those things.
That's true.
But you might want to read the transcript at some point because it's awfully interesting. And basically, it's a laid out step-by-step. This is what he said. Here's where he said it. She even read headlines from Breitbart.
Oh.
Specifically saying, here's what alt-right means, and here are examples of it. And this is completely unacceptable. That's the gist of it. And it was interesting because, and many of the commentators have pointed out, there was complete silence on the Republican side. Nobody stood up to defend Trump.
That's because he's got so many friends.
Sure. They asked Paul Ryan. I didn't see the speech. They asked Mitch McConnell. I didn't see the speech.
Me neither.
Right. It's one of the big speeches in the entire campaign for the entire year. And they managed somehow or other not to see it.
Yeah, and there wasn't much else going on.
Right, because what do they know about politics? And, of course, they didn't have any idea that such a thing was going on. It was, to quote a very well-known pundit, it was huge, and it was really classy.
Well,
and the fact is, it really feels like one of those turning points, one of those Joe McCarthy, have you no shame kind of moments.
Yeah, all right.
And the next day, there's no response from the Trump campaign. They knew that this was going to be difficult because they pre-butted it. They had a Trump speech just prior. And basically Trump said, every time they run into trouble, they came up with the same tired racist, without apostrophes, but lots of commas. And therefore, all they do is they accuse us of being racist. But what Clinton did is said, thank you for pointing that out. Let me give you the documentation. And then she did.
Oh. And
there's no response to that because he really did say all of those things.
I have no response to that.
What I saw, there was a handful of people who didn't really try to defend Trump. About the best they could muster is that there was an accompanying a web ad or web video tying David Duke and KKK people, white nationalist farmers who support Trump. And they played that. And so people like Michael Steele over at the Republican National Committee, this was on Meet the Press yesterday at 5 p.m. First they had Tom Coburn on, who was a complete nutcase, who said, this has nothing to do with anything because alt-right, I even know what that means, and besides there's so few of them. And so that's not really what's going on. What's really going on is we want a convention of the states, and we want to change the Constitution.
Oh,
not a constitutional convention,
Right,
mind you. We're not rewriting the whole thing.
No.
We just want to make sure that we have a balanced budget. So they got this nutter, basically, on the show, who said, I don't care what Hillary Clinton says, it's got nothing to do with the Republican Party.
He was just reading the clues from his patriotic crossword puzzle.
Something like that. Then the next person they have on, or right after, is Michael Steele, who says it's overblown. And Time magazine reporter Zeke Miller was on Twitter saying, oh, it's the same old politics. Of course, none of that is correct. Everybody else gets it right. They looked at this and said, this is a major thing. You have a candidate from one major party calling the other candidate from a major party a racist, and very cleverly saying, but this is not the entire Republican Party. This is something we talked about on the air for months. When we talk about never-Trumpers, even with a modicum of respect, yes, we know you don't have the votes to keep them from getting the nomination at the convention, but it was always going to be after the convention that this matters. Here's where it matters. You have Clinton saying, you folks in the Republican Party who consider yourself conservative, who consider yourself Republicans, you do not have to associate yourself with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is awful. He's terrible. And his campaign CEO is a complete jerk, and we'll talk about that even a little bit more because, of course, he got caught registering in Florida using an address that is an unoccupied home.
Yes.
Owned by a foreign national who Breitbart had spoken very highly of.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well,
that's part of it, too.
He's registered in an unoccupied home. He lives, actually, in Washington, D.C., in a
yes,
house
but he's
owned
voting
by,
in Florida.
Maybe the
otherwise, it's
Muslim
illegal.
Brotherhood,
It's kind
possibly,
of called.
let's say.
I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on TV. But the newspaper articles I read claim that it's illegal, and that therefore he's participating in voter fraud. Which, by the way, is something the Trump campaign likes to talk about a lot. In any case, she reads Breitbart headlines and makes it very clear that these are the same kind of John Birchers that William F. Buckley threw out of the party. And where is the William F. Buckley, in effect, she says, of 2016, who's going to throw these jerks out of your party? If you don't do it, it's on you. And if you do it, that's great. And either way, it's perfectly okay for you to vote for me and not Donald Trump because he's not of you anyway. And so she makes a play, as she has by getting the national security part of the Republican Party to endorse her. She makes a play, as she has done, by getting former Bush officials and Reagan officials to vote for her. She's been doing this for a month now. Every day there's a little dribble-drab of ex-Bush or Reagan officials who are endorsing Clinton. And she says, I am perfectly happy, and it would be good for the country, if moderate Republicans voted for me and not him. And that's what yesterday's speech was. And it was, I think, going to be remarkably successful and very difficult to attack by Republicans because she was not attacking Republicans. Very smart politically.
Oh, okay. I do wish I had. I saw a bit of it.
It's not that long. It's very worthwhile later in the day, maybe looking at it over at YouTube because they capture these things. If you want, there are even transcripts, which might even be fun to read.
Okay, I would like to read them.
Okay, I'll find one for you
now.
Well, I'll try to find one for you now.
Okay.
But in any case, there was that. Here we go.
All right.
Here's the transcript. It's at Vox. Hillary's speech accuses Donald Trump of steady stream of bigotry. And let me just Skype it over to you so that you can look at it.
Is there a link on the word speech so I can find out what that is? What is a
speech?
Yeah. Well, Vox is better than that, thankfully.
Right. So she says, thank you, Reno. It's great to be back in Nevada. Nevada.
How'd you say it?
Nevada.
Good.
My original plan for this visit was to focus on our agenda and help small businesses and entrepreneurs, but I'm going to talk about this stuff instead because it's really important. It was a really nice start to it.
Screw that. I have to wait. Right. Okay.
So I'll leave that with you, and maybe you'll decide whether you want to read the whole thing or not. But sometimes you do that. Clinton's alt-right speech offers moderate GOP voters an escape from the nightmare of Trumpism, writes Greg Sargent. And he also stated that this alt-right views immigration and multiculturalism as a threat to white identity, and that Trump's campaign had given this view a national megaphone.
White-identity. I'm going to...
White identity.
White-identity.
Well, you could use that. White identity. This, I believe, he writes, is the clearest description yet from any Democrat of Trump's mythology as a narrative of racial grievance, redress, and reaction. Trump is energizing his supporters by telling them that white America is under siege, and that only his fabled strength, toughness, and refusal to be hamstrung by political correctness will reverse the dark tide. And she tied all of that to a broader argument that Trump is, in essence, too full of hate to represent all Americans and temperamentally too dangerous to be put in charge of the American military.
Full of hate.
Full of hate. But
that's cute.
Sargent wanted to flag this part of the speech in particular. Her effort, in a sense, absolve the broader Republican Party from Trump, or at least to give Republican voters a way to do this for the party.
That's the criticism I have heard.
Yeah, and she talked about Bob Dole in his acceptance speech, saying, if you want to vote, if you're racist, here are the doors. She talked about George W. Bush going to a mosque right after 9/11. She talked about John McCain talking down the voter in a very famous video where the voter said he's an Arab, and McCain said, no, ma'am, he's an American, and, so on and so forth. In fact, in a separate discussion, she also called into CNN yesterday, the other day. I think we may even have talked about it on the air, and about talking about her emails. She called into Morning Joe today and talked about the speech and why the Clinton Foundation was important, and plans for trying to do a transition so that it's done in a reasonable way, but a good solid defense of the foundation's work, why it's important, and why you can't just shut it down immediately because people will die. So it was a very strong performance over 2 days, and I think it'll have an impact. This is one of those things where you look at it and say, this matters. This is substance. This is not the same thing as Trump saying, I know you are, but what am I? You're a racist because I'm a racist because you're the real racist, and where's the documentation? None. Whereas she lays out everything in great detail. So I just have a feeling it really is going to make a big impact, and the fact that no Republican was defending Trump, unless you happen to be a Trump Republican, I think is highly significant.
Yes, I would think so. Well, it's a good theme to lead into the weekend with. People will be talking about it.
And, by the way, did you know that Breitbart is trying to expand to Europe?
Why?
It wants to launch it in France.
Well, sure, why not? I guess Huffington Post did a thing where they opened an office in every place. So I guess they think
Politico did. Politico has a Politico Europe.
Okay, but they're a publishing company, and Breitbart is just a collection of people in the basement, like us.
Right.
I don't try opening Europe.
Paul Waldman has a piece in The Week. Yeah. Can Hillary Clinton convince the Republican Party that Donald Trump is a racist? And he talks about the speech, and the answer is, I think she can. He concludes, it will be some time before we know for sure, but for the moment, Clinton's attack on Trump can persuade more than a few Republicans that they can reject him, return to the party once it's purged itself, but that'll be no easy task.
Like coming back
a really interesting piece from Benji Sarlin, among others, is he's been doing these long-form pieces for MSNBC, and this one is Chapter 3, Beyond Trump. He was looking at the Trump voter. We covered it on the show. This one is Beyond Trump. Where will the Republican Party go after 2016?
All right.
Assuming he loses.
ISIS.
Well, he's got 4 paths. Path 1 is Trump takes over the GOP. I'm going to read them to you and ask you to vote as to think what you think is most likely. Part 1, Trump takes over the GOP, and the Republican Party is remade in his image.
Okay.
Or refined Trumpism. Trump loses, but somebody like him comes along and does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Choice number 3, door number 3, is the party establishment wins. That's the one I think is least likely. And part 4, the stalemate, that Trump loses, but no one faction competing for prominence gets the claim victory, and the years-long stalemate within the party, also known as the GOP Civil War, continues.
Okay. That one.
That one. You like that one best?
Yes. Well, I think that's the most likely. No one resolves anything, and we're left in limbo. That's the most likely, I think.
Right. So on that one, Sarlin writes, the establishment wing will claim Trump's difficulty with minority voters means the party must diversify. The Tea Party wing will claim Trump's disgruntled populists were mad that Congress didn't fight Obama harder. Social conservatives will claim they should have nominated a candidate with pro-life credentials and one marriage rather than 3.
Okay.
And fiscal conservatives probably continue to push the Laffer curve and trickle-down economics.
Okay.
He didn't say that, but I did. But, yeah, so now you got 4 factions.
He wasn't a true Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. Just like he wasn't he wasn't a real conservative, though. He abandoned conservatism. He abandoned Trumpism. And he was Trump, so that's terrible.
Exactly. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, a Q poll comes out yesterday, Quinnipiac poll showing Hillary Clinton up 10 points. There was another one from PPRI showing 12 or 13 points. I mean, she's really doing fairly well in the polls. And the Q poll is influential not because it's good, but because a lot of people like to talk about it, and they give you a lot of crosstabs, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And that was of interest. So Philip Bump is looking at that particular one. And he just notes that from the end of June until now, at the end of June, Clinton led 42-40. Now she leads 51-41, and it gives you an idea of what's going on.
I think we should begin reporting the differences in polls in deciles rather than points, and just to make it seem a little more competitive. If she's ahead by 1.2, people are charged up. It's an exciting race.
We have to find some kind of equivalent unit, like a Friedman unit, just to refer to these things. So this story was in The Guardian. We referred to it a little bit earlier. You did too. Trump campaign chief is registered to vote in Florida at an unoccupied home.
Yes.
Donald Trump's new presidential campaign chief is registered to vote in a key swing state in an empty house where he does not live.
Oh.
Apparent breach of election laws.
So.
Yeah, so that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, which report was this one?
This is in The Guardian.
Okay, yes. All right, I have got that one. Yeah. That's wrong. You should not do that. By the way, who had this problem? Ann Coulter had this exact same problem last election cycle. Registered to vote in a Florida home in which she didn't live. Oh, well, it wasn't abandoned the way this one is.
Well, but the funny thing is that the Trump campaign is counting on people who don't ordinarily vote.
Yes.
Like his children.
Right.
Like his campaign manager. And so if that's the case, maybe one of the reasons he's not going to do as well as people think is, some of his supporters, including his own circle, don't do it right.
Right. They're not very good at it. I saw something about Trump and his own voting the other day that made... Oh, yes, right. Somebody was saying that... did you know that they were reporting Trump changed party registrations 7 times between the years of X and Y, and I couldn't figure out whether that was supposed to be a report like, look how flip-floppy he is, or was that supposed to be, look how politically independent he is?
I don't know.
Who
Nothing about Trump means anything, so one shouldn't try to read
I found the
too
whole
much
thing rather difficult to believe. In New York, where we just made such a big deal, oh, God, it's impossible to figure out when to change parties. This guy who doesn't vote, who famously enough on video in 2004, as we discovered a couple of weeks ago, couldn't even figure out where his polling place was, and tried 3 different ones before he finally filled out a provisional ballot. I'm supposed to believe that guy figured out the voter registration change procedure 7 times in New York.
Strange.
I don't know who's reporting that one, but...
So back to The Guardian, it says Bannon also co-owns a condominium in L.A. and is known to stay at the so-called Breitbart Embassy, a luxurious $2.4 million townhouse besides the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., where his website staff work from basement offices. A Bloomberg profile that Bannon published in October, with which he cooperated, stated that Bannon occupies the townhouse and described it as being his. But according to records of the D.C. Office of Tax and Revenue, the Breitbart house is actually owned by Mustafa El-Gindi, an Egyptian businessman and former member of parliament. Gindi has received favorable coverage from Breitbart News, which styles him as a senior statesman without an accompanying disclosure that he is the website's landlord.
Yes.
So those are his offices.
Many
his offices
things.
in D.C. are owned by an Egyptian businessman who he writes about favorably but doesn't acknowledge being part of the deal.
Egyptian businessman / member of parliament / senior statesman / maybe Muslim Brotherhood guy, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a weird thing that the staff works in what he calls his basement is weird. That It's not his basement is weird. That it's a $2.5 million house, and I just live here. I don't know that you live here. I think they should arrest him, perhaps.
I have learned over the months and weeks that I think the best way to understand anything that comes out of the Trump campaign, whether it's a statement about policy, talking about Clinton, or claiming anything, the best way to do this is randomly put air quotes in, like every third word.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then just say, well, what does this mean? Because when he says it's his, quote unquote.
Right.
What does he mean, quote unquote?
It belongs, quote unquote, to the Muslim Brotherhood, quote unquote, and
right.
He
I mean,
is,
that's the only way
unquote,
to understand
the
it.
founder.
This whole thing doesn't make any sense.
Unquote. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. And by the way, I clicked through. I was interested. What about the profile from Bloomberg with which he cooperated? And if you click through and the piece, because it's online, is illustrated with a big splashy photo of Mr. Bannon, and I guess if you look at that and say, wow, he cooperated, did he? He said, okay, I guess that's a possibility. But I don't know I don't know how this guy floated into this position. This guy is just like freeloading and having the time of his life off of whose bank? I don't even know that. That's actually a fairly serious question. What in the is that guy doing living in an Egyptian's house in Washington, D.C., and then the profiles, of course, of him having parties with congressmen and the Duck Dynasty guys are hanging on. And
well, I could see why he and Manafort probably didn't get along, because they're different countries backing him.
Yes, that's the big problem, I guess. But, I mean, where the hell did the guy come from? I guess it's in the profile, but here he is. He's in a $2.5 million house who isn't his, and it's an Egyptian guy's, and he's got a Sirius XM show, and people employed writing this website out of his basement, and maybe he has a house in L.A. and maybe Florida too, and maybe he's married, maybe he isn't. Well, how does
maybe
this
there's
stuff
some
work?
Domestic violence associated with that marriage. That's the other story
right.
about him today.
Yeah, I didn't even get to that. I can't imagine having a life like this. Where do these people come from? I have no idea how do you grow up like this?
If you can't imagine yourself being Steve Bannon, my high opinion of you was just raised even further.
You can't imagine this lifestyle, this idea that, I don't know, how about I float into a $2.5 million mansion owned by an Egyptian? Well, okay, I will.
Something about Gimitarian and grifters. I'm sure you can get something out of this, but he seems to fit the bill, and it's probably why Trump feels comfortable with him. Anyway, so Trump has this incredibly difficult time actually stating what it is that he believes about immigration, which is his core key signature.
Yes, well, we now know that he just will say whatever the applause
he has absolutely no core. We know that. What's interesting here is Mark Krikorian, executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, basically a hardline, send them all back kind of guy.
Who, by the way, lives in Saddam Hussein's condo.
Which favors stricter immigration controls, blamed Mr. Trump's new advisors for his changed rhetoric, a move he said was intended to help Mr. Trump appeal to Hispanic audiences. Whatever remaining chance he had to win the White House is gone, Mr. Krikorian said. Krikorian is an Ann Coulter type of guy, No. The fact now that he has betrayed his base on the signature issue that he ran on seems to me the death knell of his candidacy as a practical matter.
Or the awesome genius of it.
Yeah, well, that I guess we have to. What we really should do, I guess, is go back and look and see what Scott Adams has to say about that, in terms of his unique genius.
Yes, that's important. Ann Coulter, he's an Ann Coulter type of guy, but the other Ann Coulter type of guy, Ann Coulter, says it's all cool.
What to think, really.
And he's awesome. I worship Trump. I'm a little concerned about the fact that my book came out today. I found out I couldn't trust him.
It doesn't matter what Trump does, except on immigration, she wrote.
Yeah, right. And then it might not even matter. And she basically came out with the position we outlined in the beginning of the show the other day. Well, what we want is immigrants. We'll let them back in to clean the place. And then that's basically about it. But yeah, somebody had a fantastic tweet over the last couple of days of just, of her and Bannon, I guess, at a cocktail party, a fake dialogue between them. Saying, I can't believe that on the day my book "In Trump We Trust" comes out, he changes his position on immigration, and you can't trust him. And then there's this silence, and Bannon says, "Great hors d'oeuvres, though." at the book
That's a good
party.
thing. Oh, by the way, in case I just want to make sure we get it in here so I don't forget. Mahalo to all of our Hawaiian listeners. Obama is to create the largest protected place on the planet off Hawaii. He will create the largest protected area by expanding a national marine monument off the coast of his native Hawaii to encompass 582,000 square miles of land and sea. The move, which more than quadruples the size of here's where I get to mangle it, Papahanaumokuʻaiakela Marine National Monument that President George W. Bush established a decade ago, underscores the extent to which Obama has elevated the issues of conservation and climate change in his second term.
I can't believe
Hawaiianites, please write in and tell us about this.
Yeah. It's a land-grabbing liberal something
It's
that George Bush started, for one thing.
It's not land grabbing, it's sea grabbing.
Exactly. Oh, well.
They're expanding their horrific grabs by now grabbing sea and not just land.
He's not content with land grabbing in Utah.
They now do air grabbing and sea
in Hawaii.
grabbing. And what's left? I
Right.
mean, we're going after all of the four elements one by one. What do we have left? Where are our freedoms?
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you what. You guys start on the fire grabbing. I'll be right back.
Well, it's Hawaii. They could.
Oh, right. True. Lava. Oh, you can grab land before it becomes land.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
I'll tell you what, though. I think you have it right, David. We will grab the land and the sea. They can have the fire. Go ahead, grab it. I want to see you do it
And
right now.
once
Live
you grab
TV.
the fire, I will even at that point donate air to you in short blasts right at the fire that you're holding.
Right, and by the way, you lava huggers, okay, you just go right ahead and do your thing, and we will continue to make fun of you.
The woo is waiting. All right.
These are crystals just waiting to be made. Just go ahead and do it.
Right.
Anyway, the pictures they have are just absolutely gorgeous. The bluest of blue water. The rainbow in the sky. It looks wonderful. So congratulations for him doing that. And sometimes we don't talk enough about the environment, so good for him. But really, those of you who are from Hawaii, let us know about what this means.
Yeah.
Let alone how to pronounce
say
this properly.
the name of the place.
The name of the place which I cannot name.
Waponi Woo, I think. All right. Well, that sounds nice. I wonder who objects to that. I assume Republicans, and maybe they wanted to drill there or something, or just kill whales. Maybe.
Yeah, let's ask Sarah Palin. Maybe there's oil there. How do you know unless you go down and drill?
Has a special relationship
it would be
with
irresponsible
Hawaii.
not to.
Yes. Sarah Palin is in the news, I see, thanks to Raw
she's mad at
Story.
Trump.
Yeah. And
She's taking Ann
wildlife.
Coulter's side.
Okay, well, that's good. The two of them should get together and write a book that says, today we're correct, and then launch it and see what happens.
Well, you got 24 hours, right? Because after that, they won't be. But anyway, that's kind of a summary of what's going on. I really do think this is an incredibly important moment in the campaign. And the idea that the campaign really starts after Labor Day is just silly. I think the campaign's pretty much over.
Well, school starts before Labor Day. I don't see why the campaign should wait.
That's the way I'm thinking about it. And with that, I will leave you. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. I do have a couple of days next week where I won't be on the show.
Oh.
I think Wednesday, and I'm working out Thursday. I'm not sure what's going on Thursday. Definitely Wednesday I won't be there.
All right.
But I'll be there Monday, so we'll talk. We'll see what happened over the weekend. We'll see maybe after 72 hours if Donald Trump can think of some kind of response to the point-by-point speech that Clinton made. He hasn't. All he's done is call her a bigot.
Well,
I
You
don't think
Suck
that
is
was-
still available. You could look into that.
Yep.
Okay.
With that, take care, and we'll talk to you Monday.
Thank you. All right. Monday's the key day. And
Hey,
you can also-
you have that transcript of the Clinton speech if you want. It's awfully interesting.
all right. I'll give it. I don't think I have do I do a Clinton voice? I don't think I've ever done that one.
Right, but
I'll
it's the
give it a
Vox
shot.
thing, second to last there in your Skype chain,
Okay.
and we'll listen to the podcast later and see what you do with it.
Okay. We'll find out.
Alrighty.
I'll let me know as soon as I find out. Thanks, Greg. Take
Right,
care and have
okay.
a good weekend. Okay, yes, Palin is back in the news. She's mad at Trump for, and I love that they keep going to the softening on immigration. So there's definitely that to turn to. I guess she's mad and went on the O'Reilly factor, but O'Reilly, I don't know, was he off this week or did he just take that day off? Eric Bolling was guest hosting, and so she went on there. I don't know. I mean, is this do we raise the level of news with this? It looks like, is this a picture from her appearance, or is this just a picture of her goofy appearance in general? So it looks like a Facebook photo. Did she really put that on her own Facebook? She's such a goofball. Anyway, I don't know. This is probably not the most amazing news of the day, so we'll hold it in reserve. There's so many things that I feel like are floating around. I'm going to have to look back through my own Twitter feed and the front page at Daily Kos just to remind myself of the number of stories that are hanging out there. Maybe I'll double back first and, fill in the blanks about LePage. Bill, if you're still with us, I know you sent us a link to the recording. Is the recording radio safe? Have they bleeped it where necessary? Because, of course, I understood it to be a profanity-laced message, which is the only reason I'm interested in playing it, ironically enough. And I love, it was a good term, or profanity-laced. I don't like just sprinkling. I want it full-on laced with profanity. The Press Herald, the local paper, has got the story of his latest confrontation, and they probably do. Well, they're in print, so we can make it radio safe. No, don't play it, says Bill. It says "see sucker" twice. We're gonna say that on the air anyway. It's bad. That's great. So apparently that's a big issue for Mr. LePage. And, I did see somebody commenting that, I think, was it Howie Klein, say, I guess for Paul LePage, like his big nightmare is getting drunk and maybe indulging in some practices that he would find, for whatever reason, to be embarrassing when he came around and, in true Republican form, accuses everybody else of doing this sort of thing. Anyway, I'm not sure exactly how he put it. But now we know how he put it, Paul LePage. So we can't play it on the air. I would like to, if I had, a staff for this, I would say, bleep this thing up and then let's play it. But I guess we won't. So, all right, let's see. Prove I'm a racist. LePage challenges Westbrook lawmaker in obscenity-laced voicemail. I prefer profanity-laced rather than obscenity-laced, but it's good that, like Eskimos, we have many, many words for dirty language in English. The governor later says he wishes he and Representative Drew Gatine, I'm hoping is the pronunciation, could have a duel and, quote, I would point, parentheses, my gun, parens, right between his eyes, which I don't even know if that's, it's not a good place to point anybody's gun, of course, but I don't know. Anyway, more ridiculous fantasy. Governor Paul LePage left a state lawmaker from Westbrook an expletive-laden, there's our other word, phone message Thursday in which he accused the legislator of calling him a racist, encouraged him to make the message public, and said, I'm after you. Not like after you, I'm holding the door for you. I'm after you. I'm coming after you. Which, I don't know, maybe is a threat. LePage sent the message Thursday morning after a television reporter appeared to suggest that Democratic Representative Drew Gatine, and that's Gattine if you know how to pronounce that, was among several people who had called the governor a racist, which Gatine later denied. Why deny it? He is a racist. Hello, Paul LePage, you are a racist. I mean it. And if you haven't kept up to speed on exactly why you remember, we definitely have covered the story of how he keeps saying Maine would be perfect if it weren't for all of these black and brown people coming into the state because they bring drugs and they rape the white women. And he really actually says that. And people say, did you mean to say that effing stupid thing you just said? Yes, I did. I absolutely meant it. Just like Trump, he goes right at it. And Bill Scherer, I think, was tweeting this morning. Basically, if you have any question about what a Trump presidency would look like, you ought to be looking at LePage. LePage really is an awful lot in behavior like Trump. He's not got anything. I mean, there's actually some somewhat bizarrely endearing qualities to Trump. I mean, he's a buffoon, whereas LePage is just a devil. He's just a jerk, and everybody hates him, and there's nothing about him that makes people go, gee whiz, he's successful even, or something. Or isn't he ridiculous the way he says he's the best at everything? I mean, that's what I mean when I talk about endearing. He's a total buffoon, and everybody loves to laugh at his ridiculous claims, but there's none of that for LePage. Anyway, yeah, he's a racist, and yeah, he keeps being asked to clarify his racist statements, and he keeps saying, here's the clarification. I'm a racist. That's why I said those racist things. Would you like me to say it again, but worse? Sure, that would be great. Put it on the record. Again, but worse. All right. It's pretty clear. I don't think there's any reason for Gattin to deny anything, but anyway. The exchange, followed remarks the governor made in North Berwick on, which, I don't know, is that Berwick? in New England talk? It's spelled Berwick, but it's pronounced whatever. Throat warbler mangrove, I guess. On Wednesday night, about the racial makeup of suspects arrested on drug trafficking charges in Maine. Again, it's back to the drugs. Mr. Gattin, that was pleasant of him to start with. This is Governor Paul Richard LePage. Why he doesn't say Paul Dick LePage, I have no idea. A recording of the governor's phone message says, that's good reading, by the way, from me. That was really smooth. I would like to talk to you about your comments about my being a racist, you expletive, which is, of course, not the word he says. It's very entertaining, filling in the blanks. I wanted to talk to you. I want you to prove that I'm a racist. I'm just filthy. That's all. I want to talk to you. I want you to prove that I'm a racist. I've spent my life helping black. I am laughing at this. The assertion that he's spent his life helping black people. He says, "You little son of a bitch, socialist expletive." There's no. What's her name? The polling lady. What's her name? I already forgot her name. Kellyanne Conway to calm him, or Katrina Pearson to go on here and explain what he meant, or for that matter, who is it? Oh, Hope Hicks, the amazing Hope Hicks. How does Hope Hicks do it all by herself? My goodness. It's amazing that she needs somebody to go on and explain that he didn't do that. He makes his own phone calls like this. I want to talk to you. I want you to prove I'm a racist. I've spent my life helping black people, you little son of a bitch socialist expletive. I need you to just friggin', I want you to record this. It's only being recorded. He's speaking to voice. I want you to record this. Hi, leave a recording after the message. I want you to record this. That's what I was just saying. I'm recording it. I want you to record this and make it public because I am after you. Thank you. He does have manners enough to say thank you afterwards. Governor Paul LePage's message to Representative Drew Gattin follows. Warning, this audio contains obscenities and expletives and dirty, dirty language. We can't play it. LePage later invited a Portland Press Herald reporter and a two-person television crew, a two-live crew from WMTW to the Blaine House, where during a 30-minute interview the governor described his anger with Gattin and others, and then told them he had left the phone message and said he wished he and the lawmaker could engage in an armed duel to settle the matter. Okay. And I wish it was with steamrollers, and you were unarmed, and you were buried up to your neck in the asphalt. Whatever. Anyway, when a snot-nosed little guy from Westbrook should invade Augusta and dispose of their governor, calls me a racist, now I'd like him to come up here because, tell you right now, I wish it were 1825, Paul LePage said. And we would have I guess he looked up when was the last time dueling was legal in Maine. And we would have a duel. That's how angry I am. And I would not put my gun in the air, I guarantee you. I would not be Alexander Hamilton. Oh, no. In the spirit of the moment. No effing S you wouldn't be Alexander Hamilton, you idiot. I would point it right between his eyes, because he is a snot-nosed little runt, and he has not done a damn thing since he's been in this legislature to help move the state forward. There's no moving the state forward with Paul LePage in the governorship. Just forget that. Gatine is the House chair of the legislature's Health and Human Services Committee, which has opposed some of LePage's welfare, drug enforcement, and other reforms. He said the governor's phone message was uncalled for. Oh, my God. Everybody's got Susan Collins disease. Obviously, that message is upsetting, inappropriate, and uncalled for, Gatine said Thursday night. If you don't impeach this man, you're going to put me on Paul LePage's side. This is what's going on. This is what I meant, anyway, in agreeing with Bill Scher that you were looking at a Trump administration in Maine. There are people who are going to look at this and say, the governor is obviously inappropriate and wrong and out of control. He's an idiot. He's unfit for high public office. But everybody's saying, Jay, I'm really deeply concerned about that. That was inappropriate and uncalled for. I don't know. Maybe I sound like a possibly drunk or ill. I don't know. Maybe it's nothing at all like Susan Collins. So I'm exaggerating that weird warble that she's got. And hopefully it's not some sort of condition that I'll get in trouble for later on. But now that I say it probably obviously is, and I can't do it anymore. All the fun is being taken. I'm against PC, too. I'm going to join Donald Trump. He's making me think of my own political allies as unfit for the office they hold. I can't believe it. This is like the 5th time that he has done this with legislators who are standing around saying, I don't understand what we're supposed to do about this guy. I mean, sure, we have the power of impeachment, but I don't really, but I can't get there from here, I guess is what's happening to these guys. Just do it. He's nuts. No one likes him. Get rid of him. He can't perform the duties. And so, what are we going to impeach him for? But seriously, give me a charge. He hasn't really, has any of this illegal? It's offensive. It's whatever. You know what? Impeachment, Gerald Ford had it right. Impeachment is what you say it is. If you think that there's going to be every year a governor who gets elected from, it's going to happen, both parties, both sides. There's going to be tit-for-tat retaliation. There's not been a guy like LePage in the governor's office, certainly in Maine, ever. And there won't be again if you make it clear that we'll effing bury you if you try to run politics like this in this state. That'll be the end of the LePage phenomenon. You can do it. You should do it. You owe it to yourself to do it. Otherwise, resign. Don't come to work. Don't be a state legislator. Okay? If you can't hack it, or you don't think it's important enough to defend from this kind of assault, then fine. That's cool. Just don't do it. Go home already. Obviously, the message is upsetting, inappropriate, and uncalled for, Gatine said Thursday night. It's hard to believe it's from the governor of the state of Maine, but again, we need to stay focused on the drug problem we are facing here in Maine, and cannot allow this story to be about the governor's inappropriate and vulgar behaviors. How many news stories have I interrupted today to read to you about the drug problem that they're facing in Maine? You can't allow the story to be about his inappropriate and vulgar behavior because you need, all right, I can understand. It's good you want to keep your eye on the ball. The rest of the country I know you got a drug problem. I got it. Whatever you want to do about it is cool. I support you. Any solution you want. Pick it. I'm on your side. Get rid of your governor. All right. I guess that's not even the end of it here. There's another little section here that says, reporters question enrages governor. He's enraged again. I can't believe it. LePage left the message after a television reporter asked the governor what he would say to people who are calling him a racist. I would say I'm not a racist. That would be the normal person's answer. LePage asked who had called him that, and the reporter said he had talked to Gatine, but didn't say Gatine had called the governor a racist. By the way, thanks a lot, a-hole reporter. That was really super effing brave of you, wasn't it? Governor, what do you say to people who call you a racist? Who called me a racist? A guy who's not me and who's an elected official who didn't say it, but it's the name I had in my head. And now he's going to have a duel with him and put a gun between his eyes. Thank God it's not 1825, because that makes you accessory to murder. I'm deeply concerned that I don't have any sourcing for my question, so I'm going to sacrifice this guy. LePage then reacted, told the reporters, "You make me so sick," and stormed off. Notice he doesn't call the reporter and say, "You effing, I want to duel with you." He just takes his word for it. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll go up to Maine. And does this work on anybody else? Can I tell Maine state legislators that LePage said they were all racists and they'll get outraged and impeach him without asking any questions? Holy mackerel. He later called the same reporters to the Blaine house for this interview, told them he had called Gatine and said he hoped the lawmaker would make the governor's message public. I guess he did. The Press Herald made a Freedom of Oh, no. He didn't even do that. They made a Freedom of Access Act request for the phone message, and Gatine provided a copy to the Press Herald around 8:50. I guess they said, well, maybe he just did give it to them, because I don't think that they finished the Freedom of Access Act request process somewhere before 9 p.m. Gatine has been a longstanding critic of many of LePage's proposals to reform the state's welfare system. Get to the profanity, please. And has blocked efforts by Mary Mayhew, Commissioner of the Department of Health and Human Services, to change eligibility requirements for a variety of programs that help individuals and families with developmental disabilities. So that's nice. Gatine is running for re-election in House District 34, which includes the city of Westbrook. He is unopposed, except by LePage. Gatine said Thursday that he never called LePage a racist. Well, then you have a problem on your hands, don't you? An effing maniac is your governor, and he's threatening to kill you, but you're deeply concerned. What I said to the television reporter today is that the kind of racially charged comments the governor made are not at all helpful in solving what the real problem is. Gatine said, right, okay, fine. And that is, we have a crisis in the state of Maine of people overdosing on heroin and prescription drugs, and we're not doing enough with respect to treatment and prevention, which is all true and very reasonable. And now he says he's going to put a gun in your face. It's uncalled for. Gatine has he essentially agrees with LePage that drug traffickers must be stopped from coming into the state. Thank you for establishing that common ground, Mr. Gatine. The law enforcement piece is incredibly important, and I don't really care what the color is of the people that are importing drugs into the state. I think law enforcement needs to be in a position where it can do its job, but in an area where we are really failing, an area in which we're really failing, is not funding treatment and prevention as much as we should be. Oh, F you, I'm going to put a gun in your face. Okay, I have some more to say about this now. Hold on just a moment, please, Mr. LePage. Gatine noted that a record number of people, 272, died of drug overdoses in Maine last year, and the state is on pace to break that record this year. And this administration continues to pursue policies that make treatment less available. And I think that's a huge part of the problem, Gatine said. Over the years, Gatine and LePage have butted heads on several issues, and they are enormous heads, I will say that. Gatine was among the Democratic lawmakers who earlier this year sparred with LePage over how to manage patients sent by the courts to the state's Riverview Psychiatric Center, not including Paul LePage himself, unfortunately. LePage threatened to stop accepting federal money unless the legislature could figure out how to manage patients. Gatine replied, saying, "It shouldn't be this hard. If the Department of Health and Human Services is serious about this, they should be able to answer these questions." This is super charged. I guess they have a history of disagreement. Let's take a look at this. I mean, we're going to talk more about Gatine in particular. Okay, fine. After the federal government accused Maine in 2015 of processing food stamp applications slower than any other state, Gatine said the federal warning, the government had said Maine's chronically poor performance doesn't meet federal standards, ripped the state, claiming it was part of a pattern in which LePage's administration repeatedly failed to adhere to federal guidelines. Gatine said people were not getting the services they need. In March of 2015, a guest column published by the Press-Herald, Gatine slammed the LePage administration for proposed cuts to seniors' health care. Gatine said the cuts would force elderly Mainers to choose between paying medical bills and buying groceries. It's infuriating. That is infuriating. The others is just deeply concerning and inappropriate. It's infuriating that people who contributed so much to Maine have to show up in Augusta to beg their government not to cut the health care benefits that they have worked on for their entire lives, he said in the column. LePage also criticized Gatine and other lawmakers for opposing a measure that would have made possession of small amounts of heroin a felony. LePage has said the threat of felony-level crime is necessary to force people to get into drug treatment programs. The primary lever for getting people into treatment shouldn't be to get them into the criminal justice system, Gatine said. To me, if we let the problem get that far, it's just another sign of failure. Well, there are many, many signs of failure all over this article. I'm sorry, and Gatine's probably a nice guy, too, but I don't know. If you don't have the backbone for it, find somebody who does, I guess. This guy's got to go, and you can't stand around talking about how inappropriate it is. I don't know. Let's see. Goodness, where to go to next. Let's fill in some more of the blanks about the Breitbart dude and read the rest of the Guardian piece here. We've already hit the highlights on it, but just to make everything clear, I think I've read this carefully enough. Steve Bannon lives in New York and Washington, D.C., which is another sort of thing. I mean, many people in the pundit class claim to do that. I personally don't understand that sort of thing. That's beyond where I am. This idea of either being bi-coastal, as some people are, and he is too. I mean, the only property Bannon owns is in Orange County, California. But he lives in D.C. in the Egyptian guy's house. So I don't even know how you swing this stuff. But it's another one of those, why do I get up in the morning stories? I get up, I pay mortgage on the place I'm living in, and then I go and eat breakfast in it, and then I work in it. I don't understand this. I own something over here, but I own another thing over there, but I live in a place I don't own, but I live in New York and D.C., and there's just money. I don't really know why. I have employees that work in my basement. I don't know. I just wake up and there's just money and stuff happening around me. That never happens to me. Why not? I would like for that to happen. I would just love to have roll over in the morning. Oh, look, money and employees. Terrific. Well, money is immediately in the rolling over thing. Or just roll over and secure in the knowledge that there's a bunch of money somewhere and the employees are elsewhere. I don't want to roll over and see the employees. That's the signal that it's all going to come crashing down any minute. I don't understand how these guys, and what's amazing, in addition to just another example of, yes, everything they accuse Democrats of doing are things that they are secretly doing themselves, whether it's voter fraud or some sort of sex scandal, that happens all the time, or stealing, fraud, theft of any kind. But these guys, I just they set themselves up not only as moral examples, and they're woefully inadequate in that department themselves. They set themselves up as normal Americans. I'm fighting for normal America. And that's wink, wink code for white people, straight people, whatever, whoever you're busy insulting. The opposite of that, they're those guys. Oh, I'm so normal. Everybody owns property in Orange County, California, but really lives in some Egyptian diplomat's $2.5 million house next to the Supreme Court, but says he splits his time between New York and D.C., and does a daily radio show on Sirius XM, not like me, out of my kitchen. Thank you very much. And also I rent a couple properties in Florida where my ex-wife, the Tea Party activist, works on producing my conservative film portfolio. P.S. I'm registered to vote down there, and I guess I don't own pants, as is evidenced by this Bloomberg picture of him. I don't know. How does this happen? How does James O'Keefe live? Where's money for Cheerios for these guys? I have to figure out where is that money. These guys, I'm such a normal American, and I speak out for the working man, and I can't believe this crap. God, this makes me angry. So, pick your poison out of the Guardian thing. Is it about voter registration? Is it about his domestic abuse? Is it about the weird situation with the ex-wife who he domestically abused and where she lives and what she does, or what apartment he lives in? I don't know. Donald Trump's new presidential campaign chief, just to get formal about it, is registered to vote in a key swing state. Well, okay, this is in The Guardian. Remember that. They don't know yet, although the people that are reporting are in New York and Miami. They are unwilling to acknowledge at this point so far that Florida is not a key swing state. It's a total landslide for Hillary. But, okay, fine, for propriety's sake and not to overstate our case and make ourselves look overconfident, Florida's a key swing state. Fine. So he's registered to vote there. Now, it's an empty house where he doesn't live, and an apparent breach of election laws. Maybe someone should look into this. Stephen Bannon, chief executive of Trump's election campaign, has an active voter registration at the house in Miami-Dade County, Florida. I hope he has Zika. Which is vacant and due to be demolished to make way for a new development. Probably a Trump development at that. Come on. It's a vacant house. How vacant is it? It's pretty effing vacant. It makes it clear later in the article. I have emptied the property, Luis Guevara, the owner of the house, which is in the Coconut Grove section of the city. Nobody lives there. We are going to make a construction there. By the way, doesn't sound like a Trump voter. Neighbors said the property had been abandoned for several months. Bannon, 62, formerly rented the house for use by his ex-wife. I'm going to guess at the pronunciation. Diane Clohesy, maybe. Clohesy. But did not live there himself. Clohesy, a Tea Party activist. Ever heard of her? I don't know. Who cares? But Katrina Pearson, also former Tea Party activist, now lying full-time for the Trump campaign. I didn't even get to what she said the other day. Mental note. I don't know if I'll get around to that one, but you probably know that one already, but I want a chance to point and laugh about that. Clohesy, a Tea Party activist, moved out of the house earlier this year and has her own irregular voting registration arrangement. According to public records, Bannon and Clohesy divorced 7 years ago. Okay, fine. They divorced. Who cares? Bannon previously rented another house for Clohesy in Miami. Where is he getting the money? I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's right. He was a Goldman Sachs guy. That's right. I'm sorry. I forgot. He stole it before. Thank you. So he rented another house for Clohesy in Miami from 2013 to 2015 and assigned his voter registration to the property during that period. But a source with direct knowledge of the rental agreement for this house said Bannon did not live there either, and that Bannon and Clohesy were not in a relationship. Bannon, Clohesy, and Trump's campaign repeatedly declined to answer detailed questions about Bannon's voting arrangements. Jason Miller, the professional made-up name liar for the Trump campaign, eventually said in an email, God, how does Hope Hicks do it? Wow. Hope Hicks nowhere to be found in all this, but how does she do it all by herself except for Jason Miller and Katrina Pearson and Corey Lewandowski and Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway? I don't know. It's a big mystery. So eventually he said in an email, Mr. Bannon moved to another location in Florida. He didn't. Miller declined to answer further questions. Bannon is executive chairman of the right-wing website Breitbart News. By the way, has he resigned at all? Or are you allowed to be both chairman of Breitbart News and chairman of the Trump campaign? Apparently, no surprise, but apparently so, which has for years aggressively claimed that voter fraud is rife among minorities and in Democratic-leaning areas. The allegation has been repeated forcefully on the campaign trail by Trump, who has predicted the election will be, quote, rigged, and warned supporters that victory could be fraudulently, quote, taken away from us. But it is not clear that Bannon is actually entitled to vote in Florida at all, anywhere, by the way. One of the most important prizes for Trump and Hillary Clinton in their quest for the 270 electoral votes they need to secure the White House in November's general election. Details of the apparent breach of election laws by Trump's campaign chief came as it was revealed that Bannon was once charged with misdemeanor domestic violence after a violent argument with his first wife. Court documents first obtained by Politico describe how, in 1996, his wife was left with red marks on her neck and wrist after the New Year's Day argument at their home in Santa Monica, California, which began when she woke early to feed their twin daughters and he got upset at her for making noise. I also think I read briefly yesterday that I guess he spanked his toddler daughters because they were making noise in their cribs or something. I don't know what exactly that was supposed to be about either, but I guess he's kind of a corporal punishment guy. Who is the first wife? Is it Closey or is Closey a second wife? I don't know if they even name the first wife. I have to flip over to the Politico article and scan and see. I don't know. By the way, what was he doing in Santa Monica? At the time, he was heading up the Beverly Hills-based Bannon and Company, described in a Bloomberg profile, I don't know if it's the same one, as a boutique investment bank specializing in media. The guy is just, whatever, I'm in that business, everybody give me money. Does it say anything about... There's a link, I don't think it says what his then wife's name is. I don't know if it's starting to sound like maybe it's not Closey. There's a link to a police report. Oh, and they've redacted her name the whole time. So, I don't know. Is that not in the police report? I'll take a look. That's a Adobe document. So, hang on. They blank it out. So, no discussion of who that is. So, I guess that's supposed to mean that Closey is not her? I really don't know. I guess that's not definitive either. Unless they were just redacting her name out of this report in Politico. Is this a current report? What's the date on this? Yeah, 8/25. So either that, well, I mean, it could be just the two outlets are not coordinating. The Guardian isn't redacting her name, and Politico is. I don't know why. But, okay, so there you have it. Okay, so he's living in California. Court documents obtained by Politico describe how he left red marks on her when she got up and made noise feeding their twin daughters because they had to live. The case was closed after Bannon's ex-wife failed to appear in court to testify to the accusations. 5 months later, she filed to dissolve their marriage. In a police report of the 1996 altercation, she described 3 or 4 previous arguments that, quote, became physical. Bannon, who only recently came into the Trump camp in a move to reset the alien campaign, is now under fresh scrutiny over his right to vote. Under Florida law, voters must be legal residents of the state and the county where they register to vote. Guidelines from the Florida Department of State say that Florida courts and state authorities have defined legal residency as the place, quote, where a person mentally intends to make his or her permanent residence. That is super dumb and super loose, but it is Florida, I know, and sometimes people decide, I want to vote in Florida because I'm going to retire there eventually, and when I retire, I don't want to be bothered running my life. I don't know. I want to set things up so that it's cushy for me later. I get that. You intend for it to become your permanent residence maybe later. Maybe he does intend that. I don't know. But that's super loosey-goosey. And for Florida, particularly for Florida Republicans who get charged up about election fraud, that's way too loose, but they know that that's the sort of standard that they can say, well, there's no way this black person mentally intended it, but this white person obviously did mentally intend it, and that's good enough for me. And that's how, I guess, they make it work. Willfully submitting false information on a Florida voter registration or helping someone to do so is a third-degree felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Have they ever done it? I don't know. Election officials in Miami-Dade make clear to prospective voters, I don't know how clear they make it, but okay, that they are required to actually live in the county and to use their home address in election paperwork. You must reside in Miami-Dade County, their website states. And that's not a business development website. Like, you know what you must do? You must live in this county. No. In order to register to vote there, you must live. You must reside in Miami-Dade County. It adds, when you register to vote, an actual residence address is required by law. A county spokeswoman did not respond to questions relating to Bannon's situation. But keep that in mind, because that comes up a little bit later with the wife, or the ex-wife. Again, the second ex-wife? I don't know. Closey, the Tea Party one. 3 neighbors said the house where Bannon is currently registered to vote had been abandoned for 3 months. How do you know it's abandoned? Well, when the Guardian visited the property on Thursday, a large window in the front aspect was missing. A soiled curtain was blowing through it. The driveway was a mess of tree branches and mud. Bannon never appeared at the house, according to the neighbors. One of them, Joseph Plummer Jr., who lives next door, "You're dead, Plummer," said Closey lived at the house until earlier this year, and that a man of Latino appearance in his 20s was the only male ever seen there. That's the guy who owns it. Asked whether a man of Bannon's description stayed at the house, Plummer said, no, that was not that individual, not at all. The same arrangement was in place at a previous house in Miami. The $5,500 per month rent, wow, was paid via Bannon's accountants in Beverly Hills, because that's where he maintains a residence, though he doesn't live there. But he was never there, in Miami, they mean, according to someone with direct involvement in the rental arrangement who requested anonymity for fear of repercussions from Bannon. "You're dead, anonymous guy." In my opinion, he was not living there, said the source, who is dead. He maybe came around twice a year, for a couple of days at best, but he did not live there. The source's account, I wonder why he even did that. The source's account was supported by another neighbor who declined to be quoted for publication. Bannon owns no property in his name in Miami-Dade, according to records held by the Office of the County Property Appraiser. As recently as last week, he was reported to be a resident of Laguna Beach in Orange County, California, where, according to public records, he owns a house. That, by the way, is the LA Times piece, Meet Donald Trump's New Campaign Managers. And yet another picture of the bloated face of Stephen Bannon on that one. From October last year until he joined the Trump campaign this month, Bannon was the lead presenter on the Breitbart News Daily Talk Show, which airs 7 mornings per week. Jealous? Anyone? I don't know. I think you should take 2 days off, but okay. Now you're going to... Don't you get ideas. I can't do this 7 days a week. On Sirius XM. I wonder if they pay... I wonder if Sirius pays Breitbart or whether they do it for free the way they made Daily Coast do it way back when. A Sirius spokeswoman said Bannon hosted the show live from Washington, D.C. or New York. So he flits between the two hellholes that way, I guess. Records from the Orange County Registrar of Voters state that Bannon was registered to vote there from the 1980s until 2014, when he canceled his registration and began registering in Miami. He had voted in most general elections by mail in California, according to records, but did not vote in the 2012 presidential primary, which in the eventual nominee, Mitt Romney, beat candidates including Newt Gingrich, Bannon's fellow right-winger and Trump ally. Kind of a throwaway there, but okay. Bannon also owns a condominium in Los Angeles and is known to stay at the so-called, this is the part, he's known to stay at the so-called Breitbart Embassy, a luxurious $2.4 million townhouse beside the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., where his website's staff work from basement offices. A Bloomberg profile of Bannon published last October, which we have open here, with which he cooperated, minus putting on pants, stated that Bannon occupies the townhouse. Interesting. Like legally I have to say occupy. But then described it as being his. But which I mean I occupy it. That's all. According to records, of course, at the D.C. Office of Tax and Revenue, the Breitbart house is actually owned by, again, Mustafa El-Gindi, an Egyptian businessman and former member of parliament. Gindi has received favorable coverage from Breitbart. What sort of it's linked. I'm just sort of curious. I know it's going to cost us a click here, but senior Egyptian statesman, Obama is losing longtime ally Egypt, says this guy. Is this a picture of the guy? I'm curious whether this person in the picture is Egyptian. I don't know if I would recognize Egyptian President Abdel al-Sisi, or whether that's supposed to be Mustafa al-Gindi in the picture. I would not know what either of them look like. But they're shaking Putin's hand in this picture. My guess is it's actually the president of Egypt and not the guy who owns Stephen Bannon's house. But okay. But just by way of, we'll cite Breitbart News, believe it or not, on this. Who is this guy? Breitbart News sat down that week with Mustafa El-Gindi, an Egyptian politician who has played a pivotal role in the revolutions against former President Hosni Mubarak and the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood. Gindi said that under Obama, American foreign policy in the Middle East assumed the Muslim Brotherhood in positions of power. When the Egyptian people threw out the Brotherhood, America's strategy was left in tatters. America is losing Egypt, he says. By the way, would you like to rent the house? All right, back to the Guardian article. He's gotten favorable coverage. They style him a senior statesman without an accompanying disclosure that he is the website's landlord. Neither Bannon nor Closey, his ex-wife, responded to requests for comment from the article. Acquiring Florida residency is often attractive to outsiders. You might wonder, why would you do this? It's often attractive to outsiders to the state due to Florida's lack of state income tax. It's a tax dodge. This allows people with a residency to legally avoid paying state income tax on so-called unearned income, such as dividends, interest, and retirement benefits, which is probably almost all of what former Goldman Sachs guy has got going on. Attorneys often advise people seeking Florida residency that it helps to assign their voter registration to a property in the state. To cheat, in other words. So Bannon said, I can do that. Closey, who has worked on conservative films somehow, produced by Bannon somehow, since their divorce, also has a voting arrangement that appears to contravene Florida regulations. She actually lives there. She still won't do it right. Rather than register to vote from her rented homes in Miami, where her vote would be drowned out, she was and continues to be registered to vote in neighboring Broward County from a mailbox at a shipping facility in the city of Pompano Beach. But okay, fine. So that gets done, right? No, it doesn't. The use of such mailbox addresses are not allowed by Broward County, which requires that residents use their home address. You have to give the address where you live, so you can't use a P.O. box, said Tanya Edwards, a spokeswoman for the county supervisor of elections. So basically the situation here is, now give us your home address, ma'am, because you got to give us a residence. Okay, my residence is P.O. box. No, ma'am. It can't be a P.O. box. It's got to be an actual residence. Now, where do you live? P.O. Box 102. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. What? No. I would like to know how you get away with that. Closey appears in the county election register as living at 102 Governmental Center. Because, I can understand this now, right? You say, I live at a P.O. Box. But, sometimes those P.O. boxes, they allow you to say, instead of P.O. Box 950, you say Suite 950 or even Apartment 950 so that it looks like a legitimate address. So if you say 15 Elm Street, Apartment 905, who knows, right? So it's not like there's any kind of tip-off here, like 102 Governmental Center, which is the address, by the way, of the election supervisor's office. Where do you live, ma'am? The election supervisor's office. Okay, that'll be fine. Thank you very much. Happy voting. This is the sort of thing you would think would drive a Trump supporter up the wall. That you have these voter restrictions, right? And that we're not going to allow for people to engage in this kind of voter fraud. You can't give you can't give a PO box because that's just a red flag for fraud. We're not going to allow that. And she walks in and says, I live where you're sitting right now. Okay, that will be fine. There's no computer, maybe she mailed it in, right? There's no computer program that can say, by the way, if the person claims to be living right here in our office, we should not register them, but there's a wrinkle. There's a wrinkle with that too. It turns out that the spokesperson for the office tells The Guardian that this designation, that 102 governmental center, is actually one that they allow. Why? This is the designation that I guess allows them to help pass constitutional muster with their rules. That's what you put down if you're homeless. If you're homeless and registering to vote, you can put your address as 102 governmental center. That's what that is for. So, okay. They won't have a program that weeds, although they probably do actually have a program that weeds out everyone with 102 governmental center because those people are disgusting, filthy homeless. But, asterisk, this woman is a white Tea Party activist. She gets to do this. I just want to point that one out. There's probably Florida Tea Party activists out there tearing their hair out. Honk if you hate black people, black homeless people registering to vote for voter fraud, who would say, we ought to just purge everyone who has that designation because it's all fraud. If you're homeless, what do I care? But you can't vote. You got to own property in this state. You got to have a real house. And if you're homeless, screw it anyway. And what are there? Maybe 10 of them registered to vote anyhow. And I don't care about the Constitution anyway. Don't give me that gobbledygook. We got to stop this stuff. But no, Obama comes in here and he's going to fill the rolls full of homeless bums that he can bus in from all over the place and just say they all live at 102 governmental center. It's obvious fraud. We can't have this nonsense. People availing themselves of special government favors just to boost the voter rolls for Democrats. It's disgusting. We got to stop this thing, said Tea Party activist Diane Closey, who is registered to vote at the exact same address, which is meant for homeless people, but she has no shame about it whatsoever because I'm not really homeless. I'm just committing fraud. That's all. But I'm white. I have a house. I just don't want to register to vote there. What's the problem? So if a white person who has a house wants to say they're homeless, it's no big deal because I'm not really homeless. Those guys are really homeless. And that's disgusting, and it shouldn't be allowed, and you're not allowed to vote. But you see, I'm totally different. This is, on so many levels, disgusting, I don't even know what to say. And I can't remember offhand, but I should look up. But didn't Ann Coulter have this problem? Would that even be in Wikipedia at this point? Do you think that's still in her? I mean, I don't even want to wade through her thing, but maybe does she have a controversy section somewhere? Because she had that problem where I don't remember what it was exactly, but she was registered in Florida, and I don't know why, and it was the wrong district maybe. I don't even know if I see, without actually reading her thing. Maybe I need to search for Ann Coulter and voter registration in Florida rather than. But do you remember that? Does that ring a bell? Or am I crazy here? I mean, both things could be true. Registration, Florida. There we are. Let's see. Ann Coulter's Florida registration application form is online here. Here's a Huffington Post story. Coulter cleared in Florida vote probe by USA Today. Let's take a look at that one. Just out of curiosity. That goes back to 2006, 2007. Huffington Post starts 2006 with Ann Coulter's felonious Florida voter registration application by Brad Friedman, who's very into the pushback on voter fraud, of course, and black box voting, for that matter. I'm sure those of you who recognize his name and are fans. So the story was what? She registered to vote, she says, as a resident of Florida. I don't know if she was a resident of Florida or not, but she registered one county over, I think, right? She bought a $1.8 million house in Palm Beach County, Florida, but her voter application registration had her in the wrong Palm Beach County precinct, which may or may not have been intentional. I don't know. But I guess USA Today says that eventually she's cleared of this. We might as well read that one because that's where things currently stand. But very interesting. I don't know. I guess maybe there's no there, but I do remember that they are particularly angry about Florida stuff and particularly guilty of those very same things. All right. So what other things might we wrap up? Oh, okay. Well, I have confirmation, although it's noted that we shouldn't be, reading on air, but I have confirmation from a listener who says, yeah, your instincts were right. Susan Collins' voice is affected by a condition of some kind. So there you go. I'm guilty of everything. And you can discount all that I said. She's annoying regardless, but for a very different reason. We're not annoyed with her condition. We're annoyed with her indecision and jello spine. Hopefully it's not a spinal condition. Make things worse. All right. What can I tell you? Hey, I'm just joking. It's sarcasm. As excellence in radio and sarcasm as well. And also, sarcasm is the Trump excuse. I've confused these two idiots and their excuses. All right. I won't give myself any latitude. I'm guilty. And that's that. Sorry about that. Let's see. A couple other directions to go. And I've now opened every tab there is. I'm out of tabs, and I don't know where to go next. But let's take a look at Pocket, see what else I've got here. Plus, there's a few more notes from Greg, including one that he doesn't specifically say, I can't read this on the air. Ha, 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 read this. 111, which I assume is exclamation points. And it's at Daily Kos. And it starts with ROFLMFAO. You know how that goes. And let's take a look. Swedish Jewfish. How do you like that? Is a Swedish Jewfish a gummy of some kind? Or it's a blue gummy fish. It's a Swedish Jewfish. What? Okay. Well, that's the username behind this piece. Rolling on the floor, laughing how do you want to, is a effing A off, which I guess, if you wanted to eliminate one curse from it, you could say just self-deprecation, laughing my fat ass off, if you just like to say those sorts of things about yourself. But we'll just say, no, probably not. I'm sure that it's just your standard effing A that she's laughing off. Hillary, your web team is on point. Let's take a look at why. Oh, yes. So this sign showed up, and you will all have a look at it when we provide all the links later on in the afternoon. This sign showed up because we are apparently a nation of terrified man children, and it is from Maine. It says Gulf of Maine Gunsmithing is the name of the business involved. And underneath, one of those signs that you frequently see outside of a church that says, Jesus is coming, reserve your tickets today. It says, beware the beast, Hilda Beast, Clinton, and it's, get it, Vagenda of Manocide. Because you're not going to catch me saying homicide, because that's a lot like homo, and you know how I am. Very manly. I'm a gunsmith. I don't know, manocide. Whatever, Vagenda of Manocide. I've seen people, of course, pick up on this on Twitter and change their handles to Vagenda of Manocide. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, okay. So that's what this is going. I've seen reference to the sign. Poor Maine. And then within a few hours, this happened. And we are quoting the tweets of Sherry Priest, who tweets as CM Priest here. Another band name / short story title. This political cycle is good for something after all. Taking a look at the picture of the sign of Agenda of Manicide. And by the way, she then follows up just a little while later with holy, you know what, holy S, you guys, go to vagendaofmanicide.com and consequently bow down before Hillary's web people. Yes, apparently they went out and, it was originally thought that they went out and bought vagendaofmanicide.com to go straight at this latest ridiculous attack. And gee whiz, the web team, why, they're taking risks and putting themselves out there, and they're in on the joke, those guys at the web team. But it turns out, as an update, it wasn't the web team. But still, something. Okay, I get it. It wasn't a member of our web team, but a tech-savvy fan. Still awesome. Tip of the hat to whatever brilliant mind is behind vagendaofmanicide.com. Anyway, ladies, what's on your agenda today, she asks. And here's hers. She provides it helpfully. Is there anything we can do to help her out with this? Drop child off at school. It's a little early for that, but maybe they've started there. Whole Foods for groceries, of course. Correct the record, trademark. Pick up pantsuit at the dry cleaners. Destroy the patriarchy. Do laundry is crossed out, and then forced husband to do laundry. By the way, I already living under a agenda of manicide here. I do the laundry in our house, and I'm not even a gummy fish to refer back to. Okay, thank you, Swedish Jewfish, for bringing that one to our attention. 111. And there's another link here too. Oh, is that to the picture itself so that I can share it with you? Yes, from the tweeter Stone Kettle. If there's not a Russian all-girl feminist punk band named the Agenda of Manicide, there damn well should be. And I'll have to agree with that one. Okay. Other items of interest. Well, should we double back now and do the Hillary speech thing, or try and cram more stories in? I think I'm gonna go with the cram more stories in method here, but just to catch up on some of the other items of interest that we've been tweeted here. Let's see. Ballerina X says Egyptian agitator hosts Breitbart News CPAC party at his house. And that comes from BreitbartUnmasked.com, and maybe that will provide us some interesting detail on this Egyptian dude. Let's see, what's Gideon up to here? Be interested in you talking about how recent conversations in Virginia about Trump went. You know what? I really haven't had a great deal of conversation about Trump in Virginia. My experience has been, hasn't been conversations per se, but driving through some of the more rural areas. But the most time I've spent in rural areas recently during the Trump campaign and seen evidence of interest but had no discussions about it with anyone has been in Pennsylvania rather than my trip up to Niagara Falls. There's vast swaths of relatively unpopulated land in Pennsylvania. And I mean unpopulated land in Pennsylvania. We're talking about Tioga County, Pennsylvania, where I had some recent conversations about my trip with people who are from rural Pennsylvania, and they were like, oh my God, nobody lives there. That's really unpopulated. But where people are to be found, they seem to be Trump enthusiasts. How do I know? Lawn signs, because those things are worthless. Maybe it's all a ruse. I don't know. But no, in my area in Northern Virginia, there isn't street conversation about Trump, even among Hillary Clinton supporters. It's just not brought up in polite society, I guess. But if that changes, I will certainly let you know. Let me take a look over at this Breitbart Unmasked story to see if there's something fun to add to this. I don't know who runs Breitbart Unmasked, but they sound like the kind of person who might be entertaining. Matt Osborne, do you run it? This is written by Matt Osborne, who I do know, but I don't know if he runs it. I guess I could look at the home and about us section, but let's get to the meat of the story instead. And this goes back a ways, March 13th, 2014. Egyptian, so you know it's true, because it predates, he knew it even before it was cool. Egyptian agitator hosts Breitbart News CPAC party at his house. His house, damn it. The annual Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, which Hunter covers so humorously for all of us over at Daily Kos, is famous for its parties, including Blog Bash. It is not famous for Blog Bash, but okay. That is one of the parties that's included in the fame package, I guess. But only Breitbart News LLC has a permanent venue for their party, the Embassy, a $2 million home, now $2.4 million, in Washington, D.C. The address belongs to Mustafa El Gindi. Spellings vary. The last installment there over in The Guardian was El-Gindi, which makes it that much more Muslim and scary. A unique character, he's described here, in contemporary Egyptian politics. Well, here's his picture, and I doubt that was him in the picture with Putin, but okay. What's he all about? The website's relationship to El Gindi offers some hints about the current direction and perhaps even funding sources of Breitbart News. Daily Caller, equally disgusting, writer Betsy Rothstein shrugged off a great deal of flack for her reporting on the festivities that took place last weekend. I guess we should read that, too. Apparently, Breitbart's acolytes did not want us all to know the depths of their debauchery. Certainly they did. Here's some of it. I guess this is the quote from the Daily Caller piece. Yuck. Well, at least I don't have to click on them. The Mirror received numerous details on the party. Oh, I'm sorry. That's funny. So this is the reporting of Daily Caller's Betsy Rothstein being block quoted. What the actual content of the block quote is, she just stole from the Mirror. So, okay, there you go. The conservative model at work. The Mirror received numerous details on the party that have yet to be reported. Yes, there was that swing band with musicians in black tie, rolled cigars in the backyard, a cigarette girl milling about with candy, a champagne dispenser, and a full bar. But there was something else. A vibe that a partygoer described as that of an anything could happen, okay, orgy vibe. Different. Interesting. All right. That seems weird. But okay. Maybe it's a respectable orgy of some kind. I don't know what that... In an email bearing the subject line, "The Breitbart party was the sickest S ever," a guest described it like this: "It was like the party embodied the spirit of the man." Breitbart. The man. Too intense. Too drunk. Too virile. Too extreme. In a world where Andrew Breitbart is too virile. You can't believe what comes next. You won't believe what happens next. Click here. There was such a vibe at this house, so un-Washington. It was sick, like the good kind, and virile, and intense, and drunk, and loud, and horny, in a way that seemed like a real tribute to the man himself. In other words, basically, we acknowledge he was a complete F-up, but we love it because that doesn't make any logical sense to you because we're conservative. F you, you're a cuck, who cares? Just like we said yesterday, it doesn't have to make any sense. And if you're confused by it, if it doesn't make any sense, you screw you, cuck. You're dumb. We hate you. You're a retard, as they love to say, or a libtard, as they like to say, to make sure that we all understand exactly who it is that they hate. This is what they do. We're for real America, moral values, blah, 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 but this is what we do with our off time. Is that a contradiction? Shut up, cuck. We hate you. And that's all it is. Okay. So it was sick and virile and intense and drunk and loud and horny in a way that seemed like a real tribute to the man himself who died because he was sick. Everyone was good looking and young. Yes. It was slightly frat, but definitely in the spirit of CPAC. See? Definitely in that spirit. Anything could happen at this party. A stabbing, which is so like authentically city and black, right? I mean, a stabbing, an orgy, a tent revival, dancing, levitating, crying. One of the bathrooms has a glass door. It was very eyes wide shut. Breitbart. It was really sinister. Hard to explain. It was like there was a full moon, but there wasn't. Maybe there is always a full moon over Breitbart. These people are disgusting. Arrest them all. All right? El Guindi is a former Egyptian parliamentarian who operates cruise boats on the Upper Nile with his brother. He is Muslim, but the good kind, I guess. But within the context of Egyptian politics, his politics are rather liberal. In 2000, for example, El Guindi was behind an international wealth redistribution program, which, of course, Breitbart hates, but screw you, cuck. A wealth redistribution program in which tourism companies paid 1% of profits into local development plans, which is, by the way, what we call local development plans here in this country. As a member of parliament in 2009, El Guindi pressed the Mubarak regime to implement orders by its Egyptian courts reinstating Al-Shab, an opposition newspaper that it had closed down. He became prominent as an opposition leader by organizing popular demonstrations in Tahrir Square. A nominal independent, El Guindi has had an on-again, off-again relationship with the New Wafd Party, W-A-F-D Party. He joined it during the early days of the 2011 revolution, then parted ways in October over the inclusion of former regime members on their parliamentary lists. In the January 2012 election, the secular Wafd finished a distant third behind the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party and the Salafi al-Nur Party, both Islamist organizations. Clearly, not much room for men like Al Guindi in Egypt's fractious political scene. So, what could unite an iconoclastic Egyptian liberal with the right-wing Breitbart News? The answer is simple. They both despise the Muslim Brotherhood. Good enough for me. Even as he hailed their union with the other opposition parties at the beginning of the revolution, El Guindi minimized the role of the Brotherhood in the Tahrir Square protests. After the January 2012 elections, he objected to Islamist control of the People's Assembly, and by the summer of that year, he was voicing opposition to U.S. support of the FJP government. When Egypt's army finally swept the FJP from office in 2013, El Guindi told Breitbart.com Washington editor Mike Flynn that the Muslim Brotherhood was, quote, finished, and in the process he endorsed a conspiracy theory that happens to be very popular with tea parties. Ready for it? On Monday, an Egyptian court banned the Muslim Brotherhood and ordered all its assets seized. Many observers see this as a temporary setback, as the Brotherhood was outlawed for much of its existence in Egypt. Guindi says this is wrong. No, they're finished. The people know now what S words they are. They're finished, except for Huma Abedin, of course. Guindi said that within 15 days of Morsi's removal from power, 90% of the Brotherhood leadership were apprehended. It wasn't the police, Guindi said, it was the people. A street worker, a janitor, a barber would see one of them and call the police. They would report them. They have no place to hide anymore, except Huma Abedin. And it's all back now because we need it to be. Because you don't know that they're finished. Whatever. Because all I did was say it to Breitbart.com and nobody reads that crap. Guindi thinks Americans underestimate the impact of the Brotherhood's downfall. They are everything in the region, Guindi said. They got people against each other. They were the head of the octopus. Now they are gone. Except Huma Abedin, who's back. The notion that the Muslim Brotherhood as the bogeyman behind everything that goes wrong in the Middle East happens to fit very well with the paranoia-addled politics of the American right-wing fringe, which sees creeping Sharia law at work in the region and has found new allies in Egypt. It is a favorite theme at the New American website of the John Birch Society, for instance, and a constant refrain on Glenn Beck's webcast. As the foremost congressional advocate of this conspiracy theory, Michelle Bachmann, now of course claiming to be advising Trump on foreign policy, accused State Department employees of being sleeper agents of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is finished, of course, and has repeatedly suggested that the organization was behind the 9/11 attacks. All of this might seem like the ravings of drunken lunatics, but at CPAC that is in fact the case. And of course that's because CPAC is in fact a bunch of drunken lunatics. Is there any better tribute to the spirit of CPAC than drunken, possibly levitating orgies at Breitbart's house? Apparently not. Will the news that El Guindy hosts decadent American parties damage his image with the pious world of Egyptian politics? Will content at the planned Breitbart Kagro vertical reflect the staff's relationship to El Guindy? Is the wealthy tourism magnate responsible not just for hosting their party, but financing their website alongside Israel booster and Islamophobe Aubrey Chernick? Don't know about that person. Rest assured that we will stay on top of this story until we have answers. I guess I should be checking in with Breitbart Unmasked to find out about that. I guess I was just clicking over to find out about Aubrey Chernick. It's published under the title of What Happened to Breitbart's Millions. A few months before his death, Andrew Breitbart secured nearly $10 million in venture capital from two sources, one of them reportedly his friend Aubrey Chernick, a right-wing Israel booster who made his fortune in the national security world and uses his millions to subsidize Islamophobia. I don't know what else. I guess we could read about what is supposed to have happened to it and what was the other source of the $10 million. But I feel like maybe we're going down the wrong rabbit hole to finish out the show. But I guess we could have another show just like yesterday's. All right. Other tidbits that I feel compelled to share before signing off for the day. The Daily Beast with the news in the headline form that Donald Trump's apprentices had to agree to go nude. Thanks to Olivia Nuzzi for that one, and the wet blanket Sam Stein clamping down on that one pretty quickly. But just to give you Olivia's take, to play in the Donald's corporate Hunger Games, contestants agreed to surrender control over their lives and images to his producers. Appearing on The Apprentice with Donald Trump required agreeing to a series of odd and invasive demands regarding sex, nudity, and food consumption. According to a copy of the NBC contract reviewed by the Daily Beast, contestants had to agree to be filmed, quote, whether I am clothed, partially clothed, or naked, whether I am aware or unaware of such videotaping, filming, or recording. Wow. 2016 is the first election in American history in which such lowbrow entertainment and politics have merged to such a degree that they are nearly indistinguishable. The requirements for the Apprentice contestants, while almost certainly not mandated by Trump himself, underscore just how strange this brave new world is. Sam Stein, very shortly thereafter, tweeted that this was standard reality television contract language and was almost certainly had nothing to do with Trump's intervention and demanding it, which I'm sure is totally true because Trump totally didn't secretly videotape the models he invited to change into bikinis at Pervalago. So that comports with things and, basically he's off the hook, right? It probably is true that standard reality television contracts do say that, which, of course, as I replied online, is probably why we don't view standard reality television people as fit for high office. But I thought it was interesting anyway, and people will be talking about it, and now you will too, at the cocktail parties with your enemies that I mentioned in this morning's post. All right, what other fun things? The New York Times has its own version of the story of Stephen Bannon's involvement in facing domestic violence charges back in 1996. If you're looking for more information on that, we can share that with you. Also, out of Politico this morning, an interesting headline that at least deserves to be mentioned because we've had the name come up before, though I forget the exact context, but it was another Trump thing. Trump's mob-linked ex-associate gives $5,400 to his campaign. The Russian-born businessman says he visited Trump Tower last month for, quote, confidential reasons. Who are we talking about? A Russian-born mafia-linked businessman whose ties to both Donald Trump and loyalists of Russian President Vladimir Putin have sparked scrutiny, visited Trump Tower last month for undisclosed business, he told Politico. He just disclosed it, dummy. Felix Sater is the name of the guy whose name has been mentioned on the air here before. I don't know whether he showed up to drop off the check, but he's a max donor to the Trump campaign. His firm co-developed a major Trump project in New York. He was later hired by Trump to drum up business in the former USSR, and has said that he closely associated with Trump and his family, while Trump had suggested he wouldn't even recognize Sater. But I guess he does, and he also has no business interests whatsoever in Russia, either because he's lying entirely or Sater was entirely unable to drum any up for him. We'll see which one it is. Maybe someday. Maybe someday we'll get to the bottom of this stuff. I don't know. Let's see. Other fun stuff. I guess, by the way, my first hint that something was going on with Paul LePage came in the form of the Press Herald editorial that Bill brought to everyone's attention on Twitter. And I guess I'll at least want to mention the headline and lead for you. Our View, message to America, sorry we gave you LePage. By the way, because the title of their editorials are always Our View, and then it's followed by Message to America, that's Our View, Message to America, sorry we gave you LePage. Answering my question, is it allowable at Daily Kos for me to put two colons in the same sentence or in the title? I guess if the Portland Press Herald can do it, then I can too. Dear America, Maine here. Please forgive us. We made a terrible mistake. We managed to elect and re-elect a governor who is unfit for high office. And just so you get the parallel, he has a gruff exterior and a blunt way of talking that some of us find refreshing, but he has shown again and again that he governs by grudge and uses his power to beat up on people who cannot fight back. You probably heard about the latest episode, and that was before the episode that I already told you about. He was asked about the toxic racial environment that he has created in the state with insensitive statements about people of color. The questioner, an entrepreneur from New York, wondered how he could ever bring a business here. This should have been an easy one for the governor. Maine is a state where more people hit retirement age than graduate from high school, and our traditional industries are shedding jobs. We desperately need new businesses and young people of all races who would be willing to move here to work. The question was an opportunity for the governor to undo some of the damage that he has caused by giving members of minority groups around the country the impression that Maine is a white state where no one else is welcome. Instead, the governor repeated one of his worst libels, that Maine's drug crisis is the fault of black and brown transient thugs who come here not only to sell their poison, but also to take advantage of, quote, white Maine women. It's a matter of fact that heroin comes to Maine from other states. They don't produce it here, but the governor is adamant about identifying the drug runners by race, leaving it to his audience to fill in the blanks of why that might matter. It's not a slip of the tongue. He said the same thing before, then denied saying it, and then it said it again before the latest incident, which isn't even the latest incident anymore, as you know. This time, he offered it as proof that the racial divide in Maine was not his fault, that it was the fault of black and Hispanic criminals that he keeps track of in a 3-ring binder on his desk. Yowza. LePage knows that his words are widely understood to mean that he thinks that the color of the skin makes some people more likely to commit crimes. Rather than clarify or withdraw those statements, he repeats them. We wish we could say he's the only one in the state who feels this way. When LePage makes these comments, some of our fellow Mainers applaud him for defying what they consider to be oppressive political correctness. But as a famous Mainer once said, rejecting the conventions of political correctness is different from showing complete disregard for common decency. Those are the words written by Senator Susan Collins, deeply concerned Susan Collins, in her denouncement of Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Like Trump, LePage is a repeat offender. It would be nice to think that LePage would reflect on what he says and learn from these incidents, but he appears to be completely incapable of change. He'll probably blame the media again for any embarrassment he suffers, but everyone has heard the tape and knows what the governor said. And we're not even talking about the tape that you can hear today of him cursing out the other guy. On the bright side, America, LePage isn't going to be governor forever, and when his successor takes office in 2019, or sooner if you can impeach him, please, Mainers of all political parties will have to work together to fix the damage he's done to our reputation. We hope that this person will be a leader who will welcome people of all races to live in Maine and invest in our wonderful state. Until then, please accept our apology. We'll try not to do it again. I can see that you're sincere, guys, but get rid of your governor and do it now. Thank you. A few more items that we might be able to squeeze in? Well, let's see. You know what? We're really getting up to the wire here, but here's one that I just wanted to. You want to read something? You're going to have to do the reading on your own, but it'll be easy to find because it's on Daily Kos. You know how to find that place. And I found this kind of interesting. Here's some esoterica. I love this story for a number of reasons, not the least of which is you can find it at Daily Kos. It's Walter Einenkel's piece here. And by the way, I don't think I've ever had to say his name out loud, and I don't know whether I've mangled it or not. Hope not. St. Louis School, fascinating, sees 90% of their students' attendance increase. Not a 90% increase in attendance, but 90% of the students ended up having better attendance records because of this new program. What is it? It's washing machines. And if you stop and think about it a little bit, or say read the article, you'll see exactly what that's about. I love these stories where you run into school administrators who are, just thinking outside the box. How can I improve attendance, especially with disadvantaged kids? What sorts of traditional roles of the home or things that they take care of, if you're well-to-do, that are already taken care of, like free lunches, subsidized and free lunches at schools is the sort of thing that, at first that was the sort of thing that people were surprised. People aren't eating lunch at home. Why not? Because they're poor and they can't afford it. Oh, I wasn't, because I'm not lunch, you see. Yeah, well, okay, that one was a little easier to come up with. But this one, as it turns out, the expense of either having and maintaining washing machines at home or laundry detergent at home or finding the time to be able to do it in between 19 jobs or finding the money to do that when you're struggling to pay for food turns out a lot of kids end up running out of clean clothes and just saying, screw it, I'm not going to school in dirty clothes, and they miss school until there's a chance to wash their clothes. It's so basic, but there it is. And it took the big brains in St. Louis to figure this one out, and they instituted a pilot program, put washing machines in the schools so that people could do their laundry and get to school and come back the next day, too, with clean clothes. I mean, it's the kind of thing, of course, you'll find conservatives somewhere saying, look at this pork, this waste of money, washing machines in the school, why would you even... Well, you should read the story. It's fantastic and a great find at that by Walter, but more amazing, I think, still on the part of the administrators there in St. Louis. And by the way, for putting the whole thing together, really kicking ass and solving problems. She went to Whirlpool and asked them to donate washers and dryers. This is what we're talking about. This is the kind of doing, by the way, that Hillary Clinton says she's famous for, as opposed to over there in the world where the guy uses his foundation to buy himself a signed Tebow helmet, right? Remember that. Talk about it this weekend. Tell your friends. What about what's coming up next on the after show? I'm already late. Let's get started. Sun Pharmaceutical sold a factory in Pennsylvania to avoid sanctions by the FDA for knowingly releasing 27 contaminated lots of the hypertension drug clonidine. Mylan Pharmaceutical pushed for the law to make EpiPens mandatory in schools, then fled overseas to avoid U.S. taxes. It gets worse. And researchers studying the maternal mortality in the U.S. reveal that since shuttering Planned Parenthood...
Radio,
you know this story.
On networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show.
With David Waldman.
You do know the story. We did mention it. Now, Hudson, follow up on this one. Thank God they're picking this one back up again. It's so important. Planned Parenthood getting shuttered in Texas. Texas now one of the most dangerous places in the developed world to have a baby. On the last half today, well, I'm going to leave it up to you to discover what's on the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center. Stay tuned, and I'll see you next week.